All right. Good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. So, today we will be, first of all, we'll go ahead and complete our friend refactor activity that we were working on. We started with removing. We have it on the UI. So we are going to, first thing, we're going to go ahead and complete this activity. The next part, we will do the AJAX calls. How do you make AJAX calls from React? And then, if there's time, we will try to complete at least our conditional rendering as well. Okay, so those would be the three main activities for today, for today's revision. And then we will be building those activities from scratch. Right? We'll copy the CSS over some of the CSS classes, but for the major part, for the React part, we'll be writing each one of those components. Okay. Before we begin, any questions on this activity? Everybody remember where we left off? So towards the end of the class, you should have this red X icon, and if you click it, it should bring up that alert, right? It doesn't delete it; just brings an alert saying remove friend called, and the reason is because we have this function. We defined this function, and we are removing this gets called. Okay. This remove friend is being passed as a property, right? Remember, we can pass functions as properties as well. And then this gets called in our friend card, and this method gets called over here. Okay. Since this is an event handler on click, I should be getting a single argument, right? And it should be event. It should have the data for the event. You will see on click when you are passing, there's no parentheses, there's no nothing. If you put parentheses, React kind of goes crazy. It's not expecting parentheses. Okay, again, just to reiterate, the reason is on your event handlers, for example, on click, on mouse over, or whatever those synthetic events are defined in React, they are expecting you to provide them with a function that they're going to pass event data inside it. Okay, one argument one. So by default, every time we put a function over here, React is saying they're going to pass a single argument, which can be called event or e or whatever you want to call it, and this is okay. Okay, that's the only allowed function in that event handler. Okay, you cannot pass more than one argument. You cannot do anything with else. You cannot change that function. Okay, so if you go back over here, this should still be working. Everything should be good. Okay, so let's work on this one. So the first thing is, before we want to do anything, we want to remove one object from our friends array. Okay, open up friends.json so that we can reference that. All right, this is an array of object, and we want to remove every time an X is clicked. Okay, how do we identify the object correctly? Using the ID. Okay, when you click any one of them, what we are going to do is we are going to find the ID of the card that was clicked. Okay, do we have access to ID? We do. Again, if you look at the data, this is the one, and it's unique. So if I pull the ID from the card, which card is being clicked, it is guaranteed that I have the correct card. Is that clear? Okay, so if I click the first one, this is going to be of ID 1. If I click the third one, this has ID of 3. Okay, from the concept wise, that's how I understand. So I need to, when somebody clicks this X, I need to take the ID of this card and pass it to my remove friend method. Is that clear? So let's go back over here. Okay, remove friend, this is being called from my friend card. Okay, do I have access to the ID? I do. And why? Because I'm being passed in props. So I can do props.id and it will give me the correct ID. Okay, but I need to pass this ID to this function over here. Okay, so before we modify this function, we will come over here, and this function requires an ID so that I can delete that object from my array. Okay, this is not complete. It's not going to work from our friend card. We'll go and fix that over there, but this is good. So my remove friend function should expect an ID as well, and this ID will help me to delete that object. Okay, now how do we delete it? We will use our filter method, filter functional loop. Okay, remember we had map filter. Okay, what does filter method do? Filter would go through your array, and then it is going to return you a new array which is going to have less or more less number of elements. Okay, it's going to filter out based on a condition. Okay, that's how the filter works. Remember when we were doing ES6, that's when we looked at this method. Okay, so we're going to use our filter method, which is going to run on our array of friends. Okay, how do we access that? This is going to be using the state variable, so this dot state dot friends. That's how I access my array. Okay, it's called the filter method, so we will use filter. Okay, just like our map method, filter expects 3 arguments. The second 2 are optional, right? The first one would be the object, the element. The second one would be the index number, and the third would be the whole array. So we are going to ignore the last 2. We will only worry about the first argument. Okay, so we can put our callback function over here using the arrow syntax. So the first argument would be, we'll call it, I'm going to call it a single friend. Okay, no parentheses needed because I'm using a single argument, and then my arrow function, and this is where the condition goes. So what am I trying to filter out? I'm trying to filter out where this ID matches. Okay, so I want my new array to not have the element that has this ID. Okay, because I'm pressing X, so if I press X on 2, I want this object to be gone. Okay, so I want that condition, that object to be filtered out from my array. Okay, so what is going to be my condition? My condition would be where friend.id is not equal to ID. Okay, so basically, what am I saying? I'm saying create a new array which is going to consist of all the elements where the ID does not match. Okay, so this means if I pass an ID number 2, it is going to create an array for ID number 1 because it does not match, and then it's going to add the element number 3 as well because this does not match. So basically, I'm getting an array of 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I'm saying filter them out where the ID does not match. So if I'm trying to delete 2, this does not match, so my new array is going to consist of 1. This matches, so it's not going to consist of this. This matches, so it's going to consist of 3. So this means my new array is going to remove that particular ID. Again, this is all in memory, so if you refresh your page, everything comes back. Okay, remember filter function, unlike map, returns you the new array. So we will go ahead and save this to our to a variable. Let's call it friends. Okay, so this is my new array. You can do the whole thing in one line, but so that you guys don't get confused. And then we need to update our state. Why? Because my state has changed now, right? I went to this, I modified this array. This is the new array, so I want my state to reflect that. How do I update my state? Using the set state method. Okay, set state method expects an argument, and argument would be friends, which is this array over here. If you pass it over here, this will directly just replace this. Okay, any questions? Does everybody understand what is going on? So we are just removing that object, that element from our array, which is called friends, and we are using the filter method. So we are filtering out the ID that matches, and we are creating a new array for IDs that do not match this. Again, why? Because we are trying to delete this particular card. Yes.
Does it have to be friends.id where it's like the condition is?
Friend.
Like friend.id does not equal ID?
Yeah, friend over here, this one. So this is the each element you're trying to access. So filter, just like your map, I'm looping through the whole array, and my array is called friends. I'm going to get a single object, a single element, and I'm calling it friend. That's why. So you are trying to find the ID inside the array element. If you do friends over here, it's going to try to access the whole array. That's not what I want. I want a single element inside that array, and I'm calling it friend. You can call it anything you want. You can do say F. So this is going to be F. Oops, if that kind of confuses. But remember filter method. This is just like your map method. This gives you a single element in that array. Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Have a question?
So set state, it pushes, it drops, it does everything.
Yes.
And so if you were to console log that state after you filtered it, I'm just curious what we could see in the console log.
You will see the new array. Yes. So you're saying console log friends. This dot state dot friends. Okay, so they should give you the new, whatever the updated array is. Yes. What is it? Well, I will keep it over here once we. It's not going to run because our code is not complete yet. Yes, Irina?
So friends is as in for friends calling friends, right?
Fr-
We can use for phrase.
We can use what?
The friends stands for friends calling friends, right?
Yes.
I like the calling better. That's confusing.
So you can, let's call this filter friends. Is that better?
Do you set state?
Yeah.
Irina, are you talking about
Oh, you don't need to put the calling and then friends after that.
Should like a key value there of its state.
Um,
Yeah.
okay.
So it still works without doing a pair, even if that has a different name.
Yeah, it works because there's only a single state, but if you had
If
two,
you have multiple.
yeah, then it won't work. Yeah. If you had multiple states, then yeah, that won't work. This one is working because there's only like a single state. Is that better? Is that what you were saying? Okay.
And if
Alright.
you have multiple states, you can still do it with just friends as long
Yes.
as the name matches up.
Right. You can do comma and then yeah, keep putting it.
I mean, just friends with no.
If the name
no
matches, yes,
arrays,
yes,
all
yes,
friends, and
yes,
name
yes, because the name
matches.
matches with it. Yes. Okay, we'll keep to this syntax if this is if the other one is more confusing. But this is how it is. So we are getting a new array, okay, and then we are replacing it with our state. Okay. Just remember, you can do the whole thing in just one line. You can take this whole out and put it over here, but that's up to you guys. Okay. Any other questions before we fix our friend card? It's not going to work because we'll talk about it. Okay? Yes.
How does you get passed in again to the new friend?
Past what?
How does the event get passed in that function?
So remember all the events, all the event handlers, they pass by default a variable which will have the event information. So this could be event, it doesn't matter. Okay, we'll make it event. You can call anything you want. That's the first thing. Okay, when you are using React, when you're using the on-click method, on-click event handler, you are going to give it a function without any arguments. You will just say whatever the function name. Okay. Now React is expecting that this function, the definition of this function is going to be this. Okay. This is the definition that React is expecting. If you change this, it doesn't work, but it's fixed. This is how you need to call this function. And by default, they're going to pass in a single argument called a single argument. You can call it whatever you want. It will have information about the event, like event.target.name. Remember in our forms, we were using event.target.name. So all of that information, React is passing to you in this single argument. Okay? But what it is not going to pass you is anything else other than ID, other than the event information. It's not going to pass you that. So that brings us to this point over here. Okay, this function is not going to work. Why? Because I want my remove friend has changed now, right? What is the function expecting? Event. It's okay. We don't really care about the event because we are not using it. But I care about the ID. Okay. What you cannot do over here is you cannot simply say pass event. I need to stop this. Oh, that's fine. An ID. Okay, you cannot do this. Again, why? Because on your onClick function, it is expecting a method without any parentheses, without anything, and it is going to pass you the event information by default. So you cannot do this. Okay, this is not going to work. The syntax. This is how it is. Okay. Then how do we make this work? This is what we talked about. So we wrap this, we kind of hack our way through it. We wrap this function call inside another function call. Okay? So what do I mean by this? What is onClick expecting? it expects a function where it can pass a single argument, which is going to be event information. Okay, if you were to change this into a arrow function, how is that definition going to look like? So it's going to be E. I'll remove the parentheses when we are done. And this. Oops. There we go. Is this correct? Is this still valid? It is. Why? Your onClick is expecting a function with a single argument, and that's what you're doing. You just change it into a arrow function, but it still works. Okay? So we will go ahead and remove this because we don't need, it's a single argument. Okay? Now, what do we do? In this function body, we call our remove friend. In this function body, you can do anything you want. The only thing is, your onClick function requires a function, a definition of function body, which it's going to pass in a single argument, and that's all it requires. And we have given this function, so we are completing that requirement. Okay? Now within these curly braces, it's the body of the function. It doesn't care what you do in the body, right? It doesn't care. All it is looking for is this definition, and you have provided this definition. Now inside this body, we can call our remove friend and pass an ID to it. So you can do props, okay, dot remove, is it called remove friend? Let's go back here, remove friend, okay, and this is a simple, this is a just a function call within that body. So what am I passing? This function is expecting an event, which is not required, but we will still pass event, which is E, because we defined it E over here. Let me put, that looks nice. Okay, so we'll pass an E, and then I need to pass an ID. How do I access the ID? Do I have access to that ID over here? I do. Why? Props.name, props.image, props.id. I can pass that ID to my method over here. So I can say props.id. Okay, so anytime somebody clicks the X, it calls the onClick function, and then it calls this thing with this ID. So this means that whichever element is clicked, it will have access to the ID over here. Since this is a single line, we don't need parentheses here. Okay, and let me show you this is one. Okay, now what is going to happen? Now your function gets called. It will come over here. It's going to filter it out, update the state, and then it should to stop this. I'm gonna crash the whole app. Okay. That's why I hit alert. Let's see if it's able to update it. So, waiting for localhost. Okay, I'll have to close this app. Start again. Oh, there we go. Okay, so if I click this, go back and see why that did not work. So I'm getting the array, which is not being updated. So we'll go back and see, kind of do a little bit debugging and see why it's not updating. Maybe you're not getting the right props. So friend card receiving because I'm not passing the ID. Okay, so you see how, what is it?
In the key, in the front part, key one, like on the left.
on the left here.
It's there, but not.
Yeah. So that's what I was. So I look. You see how the debugging process works? It's not working. I went into my components and I looked at the component and I was looking at what are the properties that are being passed. Okay, so I have property called image, location, name, occupation, remove friend, but I don't have the property ID that is being passed. It has to be in the props. So, and these props are coming from the parent of this card. Okay, so I'll have to go over here and I have to see what am I passing over here. I'm passing the key, but not an ID. So either you can use the key or you can manually pass this ID and then say ID is equal to friend dot ID. Okay, so now I should have access to the ID. So we'll go back over here, close this, give it a refresh, yes, and then the element goes away. If you refresh it again, it should come back. Why? Because it's just in memory. So I will go ahead and remove this. So there are inspect. Let's look at this. So you'll see Goose is kind of, if you do it, you will see that it updates the array. So elements are less. It's so over here. The other thing I want to show you, it is updating the array, but you will see it updates. It gives you the older state. What do I mean by that? So if I remove this, still 3. It gives you 2. Should give you 1 though. If you remove this, then it gives you a single 1. Okay, it's updating the state, but when you're console logging, it is giving you basically the value for the old state. Why is that? Look at line number 15 and 17. So I'm saying that I'm updating my state in line number 15. Okay? So I'm updating the state, which means I'm updating this array. But when I log this, it's giving me the previous value. It's not giving me the current one. At this point, my friends array should have 2 elements, but I get 3. When I delete it again, instead of giving me 1, it gives me 2. So it's always giving me the previous state. Why is that?
It runs a set state last.
Why would it run last?
Asynchronous.
Asynchronous, that's the reason. Okay? Remember, set state is asynchronous operation. So it goes ahead and it's trying to delete it. When you console log it, since it's an async method, the state has not been updated. When it completes its function, it will come back and then it will update it. Okay? So remember, set state is an async method. Now if you look at the React documentation, they are suggesting a different way to use set state because of the async nature. We'll not go over there. It's going to a little bit more confuse you. That's what I've learned. If I add something extra, it's going to confuse you. For now, this is going to work because your apps are not going to be as complicated that you are not going to be depending on anything. What is going to happen is when you do a set state, whenever that operation completes, it's going to come over here and re-render that page. Okay? So that is confirmed that when the set state, when the async nature is completed, it's going to go ahead and render your page. Okay? But if you are depending on some logic over here, which I don't think even in your cases you should be. If you are, we can revisit and then we can see if that can be avoided with this condition. Your apps are not as complicated that you cannot grab a refactor and make this work. Okay? But I will highly recommend for people who are interested. They have mentioned why this is async in the documentation, and they suggest ways how to handle that. Let me quickly show you just the link where it is, and then we'll move on to this one. So make sure you read state updates are merged. That's one section. State updates may be asynchronous. This is the section where they mention, and this is under state and lifecycle. Okay? Again, once you are comfortable with these concepts, basic one, then please make sure you go ahead and read into this stuff because of this reason. Okay, and you can be asked that why is it not updating? What is set state? Why is it not doing this? And the reasons are mentioned in the documentation over here. Okay, but I think most people will get confused, so we'll stick to this part for now. You have a question, Chris?
No, it just kind of makes sense because you
Yes.
put your set state and then you have more logic and then set a different state.
It's
You
not
can
going to.
re-render it multiple times if
Mhm.
it wasn't asynchronous.
Yes.
You would change the state, it would re-render.
Right.
it,
And then what's going to happen is going to get stuck over here. And if your state is more complicated, your page would be stopped over there and it's going to be updating the state.
Go crazy.
You're right. Right. And then when it comes back, it'll be kind of a little bit late. Okay? Good questions, good conversations. All right. Any other questions on this? Okay? Now, since we are not using event, you can actually just remove it. We're not actually interested right now. Don't need an event. Okay, since I'm not using it, so we can go ahead and remove it, but that should not change the functionality. It still should be working as it is. Delete it, still works, refresh, comes back. Okay, any questions? Was everybody able to complete this activity, following along? Okay. Please, in this class, in the revision, please follow along. Maybe I should have mentioned earlier, follow along because I want you guys to, right? I mean, there's no use. I've already written this in the regular lectures, which we did last week. So there's no point for me just writing it again. So I'm basically typing it twice. You guys need to type this so that you understand what each one of them is doing. Okay? No questions? All right, so we'll move on. You have a question, please? The friend card. Okay, which line are we looking at? Props what? I did not get that. Props start what?
I just didn't, I needed to add that. I needed the
Props.id, yes. Remember, yeah, that's what I also missed. We looked at the console, we kind of figured out that we are missing an ID, and then I went ahead, added into my props over here, and then it gets passed. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we will move on this time. The next activity we will take a look at is making our AJAX calls. Okay? So before I begin that, I'm going to give you the activity. I'm going to list it out what you have to do, and you can build this with whatever knowledge we have studied till now. I'm talking about the revision. Let's forget Ajax, let's forget all of the things, but what I'm going to talk about, we are going to build the same app, and our app is going to look something similar. We'll have a form, we'll have an input box, a button, and then a list of images from Giphy. Okay? I hope, I don't know if you guys have the API keys. If not, you can log into Giphy, but not for now. We'll come back to that step. Okay? So we are going to have an input box, a button, a submit button. When you click something, it's going to make an AJAX call and list the images over here. Okay? So we are going to divide this into 3 components. We'll start with our basic, with our easier one. We are going to look at this component first. Okay, we are going to build this list first. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is, the first step is, you guys are going to create, if you have a question.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. Why is it that you have both the ID and key before the same thing?
So what is the relevance of key over here? Why do I need key? So to answer that question, where would you look where the key is being used? Where would you look? You are passing this,
I
but
would look in the array.
friend array. Friend array doesn't have a key. If you look at over here, there's no element called key over here. What component is this key being passed to? So what component is being rendered over here within this loop?
Oh, friend.
Friend card. So you're passing the key. And what method are you using to loop through this thing?
The map.
The map. Remember, map requires a key. If you do not provide this key, what is going to happen? You will see an error in your console. So you will get a nice error in console where React is saying, hey, you're using the map function. If you use the map function, you need to provide a key attribute. What do you assign to the key? You can assign anything, but by definition, you need to assign something that is unique. And in our case, the only unique thing over here is ID. So that's what we're assigning. So anytime you're using the map function, you need to have a attribute key for sure. Otherwise, you're going to get that error in your console.
Aren't all of those things unique though?
Name, for example, name or image.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. In our data set, they're unique, but in a real world, can you depend on name being unique? You cannot. Can you depend on image being unique? You cannot. Can you depend on occupation? No. But you can definitely depend on the ID. That's the purpose.
But in this example specifically, we could because it is unique.
Because it's not matching. Yeah, you could, but don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. It kind of breaks the paradigm that we're going through. Yes. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Clear? Okay. All right. So what was I saying? Result. Okay. So. Okay. So let me close this out. So the next step, you're going to build this this screen over here. Okay. So this is going to be basically a UL. All right. So the first task is you are going to create a function component called result list. Okay. The first task is you're going to create a function component and you're going to call it result list. Okay, that's the first thing. And we can do it from our knowledge before. So you're going to create a function component and then you're going to call it result list. Okay. The second, once you have that, you are going to pass an array to this function component in the props. So this function component is going to have a props, which is going to be an array. Okay. And you are going to call that array results. So in your properties, this function component is going to receive an array called results. Okay. Now, the third thing is you are going to loop through the results array, and then you are going to render an unordered list and alive. Okay. In your UL, you're going to render LIs when you loop through those results. Okay. What is that array going to contain? I will let you know the object. So your results array is an array of objects. Okay. Your results array is an array of objects, and a single object inside that array looks like this. So it's going to have a property called ID, which is going to be a number, I think. It doesn't matter. So it's going to have a first element called ID. This is for reference. You don't have to actually build that array. What I'm saying is your result list is going to receive a property and it's going to be an array. The array is going to be called results, and the object inside the result is going to look like this. So it's going to have an ID. It's going to have a title. It's going to have a title property, and then it's going to have one last property which is called images.original.url. Images dot original dot url. Okay. So you are result list component is going to receive this array with an object with these properties: ID, title, images dot original dot URL. Okay, so you are going to render a list item, and each li is going to have an image, and the source is going to come from images dot your property. Okay, let me quickly go over it one more time. So the first is you're going to create a function component which is going to be called result list. Result list component is going to get a properties. It's going to receive an array called results, exactly this name. Then you're going to loop through this array, which is going to come in properties, and then you're going to render a LIs with images. Okay, information about the image, such as the source, alt, these are going to come from this each element of this array. And how does this look like? It will have an ID, a title, and images.original.url. That's the property name. Okay. The reason I'm calling it exactly because when we connect to our Giphy, you will recognize these are the properties that are coming from. But we don't have to worry about that for now. Is that clear? Okay. So go ahead. It should. I mean, if you looked at the previous activity, the friends one should take maybe like 10 minutes, 15 at most.
Which activity is this?
Don't look at the activity. Don't worry about that. This is the activity, what I'm saying. This is the activity. If you look at the solution, it's kind of defeats the purpose. So this is the activity. If you have questions about this, yes, let me know. Is that clear what you have to do?
Do I have to create a JSON file?
You don't have to create, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to, yeah. What is you're worried about is that your result list is going to receive everything in this props. It's not going to work, your code is not going to work, but you can still do it with info. Don't worry about the JSON file, don't worry about it. We will build in the next step. If you're confused about it, please let me know. Ask question about it. Probably doesn't handwriting probably doesn't look clear. It's not clear, but let me know and I can talk through this again. Lucy is confused. Okay. Do you want me to repeat it? Okay. So the first step is you're going to create a function called, and I'm using the technical lingo intentionally because I want you guys to understand what I'm saying. So you're going to create a function component which will be called result list. That's the first step. Okay? Now your function component is going to receive a property which is going to be of type array, and that property is going to be called results. Okay? Once you receive that, you're going to extract that property out called results, and then you're going to loop through that array. When you're looping through that array, you're going to render an unordered list and an li tags. In each of your li, you're going to have an image tag inside it. Okay? When you're rendering an image, you need a source. The source is going to come from each element inside this results array. Okay, and what does this array contains? It's an array of objects, and each object has these properties. Don't worry about what the values are, but these are the properties. So if you want to create an image with a source, you're going to use this property. Alt, you can use title. Since we are looping through, we need a key. You can use ID as that key. Okay, again, I'm intentionally using these technical keywords because that's how we created the previous one. Okay, so loop, map, keys, properties.
Glad you mentioned because I was like looking at the salt with the event. When you're not using the event, you don't have to pass it through. Because I was like, wait, I was looking at the salt ones where they just pass the ID, they don't pass the event in as well.
Oh,
I was like, oh, is that required? Like, I didn't do that either.
yeah.
It's only if you're gonna do the like event default or something.
Right. Yeah.
So who's your rooting interest now?
Should be. I just want entertainment now. Like,
Yeah.
it should be entertaining. Well, the
Right.
the previous week was good. Yeah, overtime.
Yeah.
So
I didn't watch all
Vikings
of them.
for instance should be good, and then
Yeah.
Ravens and Titans. I don't know. It seems like a one-sided one. They should
Yeah,
roll with,
I
but
would think so.
yeah.
But yeah,
First one should be good.
yeah, man. It seems like the NFC is like wide open.
Oh, yeah.
Really, anybody could get over there.
Mhm.
Hard to say between the Seahawks.
Green Bay. Do you read the news where they asked for volunteers in Green
I
Bay to
saw
shovel
that,
$12 an hour?
Right? I know.
That's great.
Green, they were like,
Yeah.
people would probably pay to come do it. They're like, I want to come show this.
Yeah.
That's good.
And they showed up. I mean, the fans over there are crazy.
Sure.
They were
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I know if you remember, but that was 2002, 2003. Last game of the season, the Vikings were playing to try and get into the playoffs, and they came and played Arizona. And there was a Hail Mary on the last play of the game. Cardinals scored a touchdown, knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs.
Oh.
The Cardinals were terrible that year.
Oh.
But I was at that game because I volunteered
Oh.
to like pass out ballots for the Pro Bowl. Like,
Oh.
so it was like
Wow.
you worked during the first quarter. You just
Okay.
went around, passed out all the ballots, and then
And
you
then
could just
after that
stay
you
and
can
watch
watch
the
the game.
game. It was like it was a pretty sweet deal.
Wow.
But
Nice.
one of the bright moments.
Wow.
I got for Christmas. I got the Blackens. Have you seen it? Have you heard about it?
I've heard about it.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, kind of getting new, of course, but yours they play Sonic
Just absorbs the
right. And I put on Blackens for my first sample.
Oh.
I figured you gotta go full. You gotta listen. You gotta commit to the experience. But I trained my whole family, friends, everybody knows gifts like you just get. I just finished the Blood Night, which is classic.
Knob Creek is actually really good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like there's a letter on the little hat. Yeah.
All right. Any questions? Is everybody? Are you guys lost or not? That's the right question. Got it? Okay. So, let me go ahead and create my folder. I'm starting fresh. So, components. We're calling it result list. Result list.js. Okay. CSS, and then I'm going to create my test.js. Okay. I won't be using any of these. I'm just following. Okay. So the first part was to create a function component called result list. So we'll do our import React from React. Okay. We don't need component. Do we need? Because we are creating a function component, we don't need to worry about the component module. So this is going to be my function component. So I'm going to say const result list. Okay. Oops. Result list is equal to listing add a function. Okay, and export default result list. All right. Did I get everything? Okay, so I create a function component called result list. All right. So the second part was it is going to expect a properties. So props. Okay. Props is going to have a array called results. All right, and we are going to loop through it. Okay. So I'm missing the return here. Okay. We're going to loop through it, and we are going to generate a unordered list with li items and images. So So my first heading would be a UL. Okay, within the UL, I'm going to have a bunch of LIs. So this is where my looping comes in. So I'm going to say props.results. It should be called results. That's the name of the array that I defined. And we're going to use a map method. All right. The first is going to be the element, the first argument, and then we're going to have our code for each one. Okay. When I loop through this, I need to generate LIs. So it's going to be LIs. All right. And each LI is going to have an image tag. All right. No properties needed. So I'm going to do a self-closing one. Oops. Sorry. Close this. Okay. Now my each image requires a alt and source. So I would say alt requires an alt and it requires a source properties. Okay. And I mentioned my result object has ID, title, images, dot original, dot URL. So we can use this over here. So in my alt, I'm going to assign result dot title, result dot title. Okay, and my source is going to be result dot images dot original dot URL. Okay. Click on new line so that you guys can see each of these properties. All right. And that's what I was saying. Anything am I missing? Good. I'm missing something over here. What is it? The key. Excellent. Thank you, bro. So you're missing the key. So since I'm looping over here for my li, I'm going to mention my key, and we can use our result.id. All right. Any questions? Does everybody understand the steps that I said? And this will render your result list. Questions? Good. Okay. So we'll move on to our second component. So the second component is going to be a class component, which is going to be called search container. So in this activity, you're going to create a class component, and you're going to call it search result container. So the first step is you're going to create a class component, and this will be called search result container. Okay, a class component called search result container. Let's see. It is going to have a state, same name as your function component, results. So it's going to have a state variable called results, which is going to be of data type array. So it's going to be an array. Okay, the search result container is going to have a state, and it's going to have a state on an array called results. Okay, from this search container result, you will call your function component. You're going to make a call to your function component, which we called result list, the one we just completed. Okay, and you are going to pass this array called results into this function component. Okay, so you're going to create a class component called search result container. you are going to add a state. The state is going to be on a variable called results, which is going to be an array. And then when you render your search component, you are going to call result list from this search container component. Okay, and you are going to pass this array results, which is over here, the one that you add to your state. Okay. Any question? Does everybody understand what we have to do? So create a class component called search result container. You're going to add a state to it. State is going to be on an array called results, and then you're going to pass that array inside to your result list component. Yes. Yes. We're going to set this. Huh? It has to be what?
Does it necessarily have to be? It's just a simple.
No. It has to be. Why? Because we are missing some part for that activity. We're going to complete it. This is just
So
one
there's
part.
more stuff.
Yeah, we are going to make an API call and get those results. That's why.
So if you have an API call, you have to.
No. You don't have to use it, but when we are going to eventually come to a point where you have to type in something and then click and then it should render. That's why. So we're kind of building towards it. Teddy, are you going to use hooks for this statement? You can totally use it over here.
I wanted to, but I can't remember
The syntax.
every. Well, I remember the syntax, just what's going to be this thing.
So So you will have result, results, and then set results. I think that's how it should be. Okay, and over here you're going to pass a empty array. Yeah, because it will set it to empty. That's the initialization. That'll be a cool activity for you guys. Give it a try. Using hooks? No. What is it?
There's a. No, the search bar is going to be another. Right?
Yeah, that's a different one. For this one, this should, yeah, we'll add.
And that state would be.
That would be a separate. So you will say
that.
const, and then you will have a search. Yes, set search.
Is that in the container? Or in the
It's-
search?
It's going to be inside the container. All the state, we will only have one. Yes, we will have search form as a separate function component, a result list, and all the state will be managed by search result container. Only at one point. So we'll have one state, and those are controlling those two forms. Yeah. So in your search result container, you will have a second state variable, which will say const search set search, is equal to empty string.
So if you have like a pretty big app, you'll have like a big state
Yes.
somewhere.
Right. That's where the Redux comes in. Redux solves the same issue. You have too many states in different places. The first step is you merge and you bring the state to the top where only one is controlling. If that's not possible, that's where the Redux comes in, and Redux kind of manages. Redux gives you a global state, and it makes you force that there's only going to be one state in your component, and that's talking to everything.
So at what point does that become? Is it necessary just because it's like you have to pass state down
Yes.
so many
Yes.
times?
Yes.
It's
Yes, and then some of the components may not even require any of it. Whenever you pass a state, remember, whenever it renders. So every single component is going to render. Yeah. So you don't want every single component being rendering at some point because it will add more time to it. So you're like, well, but the problem is that's how your tree is. So it's going to appear this. No, I just want to appear this one. So that's where Redux comes in and only reads from the global state.
But you still keep your state in the highest.
In the highest. Well, there won't be any state in the highest. Redux, when you look into Redux, Redux is keeping somewhere else and they call it a global state and they keep that. Yeah, they are the top one. They are the topmost one. Yeah. All right, are we good? Everybody done with the search result container? No? Confused? All right, create a class component called search result container. Add a state to it. It will just have results. It's going to be initialized, right, to an empty array, and then you're going to call result list from your search container, result container. All right, so how does that look? So this is done. We're going to close this.
You don't need to loop. You don't need to loop. We're already doing that.
Right, we're already doing the looping. Yes.
We don't need to loop.
No. We just need to pass that. Yes. So, okay. Search result container. Okay. And I'll call it search result container.js. Okay. Even if you didn't create the test and CSS file, that's fine. You don't really need any one of them, but I'm just creating them to be consistent. Okay, this is the only one that we need. So the first thing is you're going to create a class component. So what do we need for class component? We need React, and then we need our separate module called component. Okay, from React. Okay. Next thing we need our class syntax. So class, we're going to call it search result container. Okay. Extends component. Okay. And then I'm going to export this class out search result container. Okay. Now remember when we are using the class component, the component class over here gives us lifecycle methods. All of them are optional except one. The one that is mandatory that we need to define in our classes is the render function. All right, so we are going to define our render function. So we will say render, okay, and in our render function we will return, and then in our return we will, for now we will just do a div, empty divs. We'll come back and fill this out. Okay. This is how you define a class component. When this is your starting point. Every class component is going to be similar. Okay, just the name is going to change. So what you're saying is create a class, and then Render function, why? Because it is mandatory. You need to have at least this function in your class. Okay, and this function is coming from this over here, this module called component. All right. So what was the next step? Next step was to define a state. So we are going to define our state. So we'll say state. State is always an object, just like properties. So we'll have a object defined, and then we are going to have a array called results in our state, and we are going to initialize it. So we will put as empty array. Okay, so that's my second point. So created a state with the results, empty array. All right. The last one you're going to call result list, and then pass that array to result list. How do we pass stuff to our function components? We pass it using properties. So we will simply call our result list. Oops. Result. Doesn't recognize. Okay. I will have to import it manually. So I will say import result list from result list. Okay, so we will render result list, and we are going to pass our array. So we will call it results. You will pass this array result. How do we access it? This dot state dot results. Okay. Was everybody? The solution kind of looks similar. Exact if you are just copying it right now, but before that, similar. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So my search result container contains result list. All right. Good. No questions? All right. So the next step is we are going to, this is complete. I mean, if you had a array called results, you will be able to pass this and everything should show up. Now we are going to fill this results array using AJAX calls. All right. We are going to make an AJAX call and we are going to get the results and fill this array over here. Okay. All right. So to make an AJAX call, we will use our Axios library. Right. So we will, let me go ahead and install Axios to this project. So I will say npm I Axios, and then we will use Axios in this project. So go ahead and install Axios. Okay, while this is installing. If you look at the documentation, go into FAQ and you will see Ajax and API section over here. Okay, so the first thing you will see is where should you make an Ajax call. They are saying you should make an Ajax call in a lifecycle method component did mount. Okay, remember we are using the render function, and I said there are other functions, but all of them are optional. Right, these are all called lifecycle methods. Any functions that are coming from this module, this class over here, they are called lifecycle methods. Why are they called lifecycle methods? Because they get fired during the lifecycle of your React component. Okay, what is that lifecycle looks like? Go to reference, React.component. Open up this diagram over here. This is how the life cycle of your class component looks like. So life cycle is mounting when your component is coming up, updating when you update the state or your props. That's when it is in updating state. And the last one is unmount, when it is closing, when it is disappearing from the screen. Okay. Each lifecycle stage has a methods. We are using render. Okay, it is mandatory. You have to have every class component needs to have a render function. All of these are optional, but they are suggesting that component did mount. This is where you make an API call. Okay, when does this lifecycle method gets fired? When your component is loading, when it is coming up. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. So we are going to add a, is complete? Yes. We are going to add the function called component did mount. Component did mount, and then we're going to have this body. Okay, again, just like render, component did mount is coming from your component class on line number 4. Okay, this is defined. Again, this is optional, so you don't have to define it, but since we need to use it for our API call, we're going to do that. Okay, the second thing we are going to do is we're going to import Axios so that we can use Axios here. So we'll say import Axios from Axios. Okay, and in our component did mount, we are going to make the get call using Axios. Okay, if you remember the syntax, it's axios.get, and then you pass in the URL. It's an async method, so you need to use the then function and handle all those things. So we are going to, let me get my API keys. So I'm going to create some variables, put in my URL and API keys. So this will be called base URL, and I will create a class variable. Okay. Let me select this URL out so that you guys don't have to look for it. Okay. And then add your API keys. So I'm going to add my API key here. Okay, so API key, and replace this with your key over here. Okay, let me select this out too. Try not to use my API key, might run over the limit, but replace it with your API. Okay, so I just declared on the top so that I can use this in my Axios call. Okay, so the syntax is axios.get, all right, and .then function. Okay, and then catch if there are any errors. So we'll stub that out. Okay, so axios.get, .then, .catch. Okay, and your get, it requires a URL, which is going to be a string. So we will give this URL, which is going to be base URL plus API key. API key, and then plus, oops, what am I searching for? All right, so if you look at the base URL, it is api.giphy.com, and the end is search q is equal to and what you are searching for. Okay, so we can hard code this for now. We will say we are searching for kittens, or whatever you're trying to search from Giphy. Okay, so again, this is simple Ajax call from your Axios library. Shouldn't look foreign or new to you guys. Axios.get, put in the URL, search term, API key, and what you are going to get back, you're going to get back the results. So in our this one, we are going to put our callback function. We will use our arrow function. So I'm going to get a variable result. I'll call it result, and this is going to have the result in it. Okay, this is going to return me an array with all the gifts from this URL. Okay, so it's going to be an array. Which array do I need to fill in with? I need to fill in this results array. Okay, and how do I update the results array? How do I update my results array? State. So it's going to be set state. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to call my set state method. Okay, and this is going to update my results array. Okay, set state expects an object. There's that object, and it is going to be called results, and it's going to set from this. So how do you access? It's going to be result res dot data dot data. Okay, do you understand where res dot data dot data is coming from? Huh? From the Giphy, alright? So if you guys remember your homework. So if you want to access those arrays, it comes into this variable. You can call it result, response, anything. And then it's inside data, and then they have another object called data for some reason. So that's where your data is. Let's make it response. No, this is fine. You guys should understand res, right? So response, I'm going to pull this out from my Giphy, and if there's any error, we can just console log for now. Then we have to worry about console log error. Okay. Now, if this is good, this should actually be working. When you load your page, what happens? Your page renders. Initially, the state is empty, so it should show empty result. And then this gets fired. It should make an XCS call. When the call returns with the data, it goes ahead and updates this state. Okay. As soon as you update the state, your render function should get fired again, and you should see a list of images, title, keys, and everything. Okay, so let's go. If it doesn't, let's do some debugging and see why it doesn't work. Let me start my app. npm start. You think it's going to work the first time? No. Wow, such low confidence. Which is right, it did work. So let's take a look at it. There are no errors, so that's fine. Let's look at our components. Ooh. I do not see my search container or my results in my component tree. Any ideas? Why don't I see it? So I have my search container. Search is a container. I have my result list, but they're not, yes, right. We haven't added to our app component, right? That's why the app component is empty. Okay, so how do I do that? Go back to your app. Okay, so it only has a div, so we need to add our search result container here. So we'll say search result container. Okay, and now it should show up something. There it is. We have a error. Let me see what the cookie. Okay, that's fine. It is okay. We don't have to fix everything. Because it is localhost. All right. So this is it shows up. So this means my search container is working. Result list is working. My API call is also working. All right. Any questions? Yes.
Could I see the virtual container? I made an error 404 in my document.
Okay. What are you passing in?
I got the base URL, API key, and I'm doing the same thing here, like this dot base URL plus this dot
Okay.
API.
And what is the error you're getting?
404 undefined.
slash undefined. Did you look at your components tab? Are your components loading? All of them? Okay. And your URL is correct, your base URL and your API key. Are you using your API key or my API key? Okay. Okay. What is it? Uh-huh.
Called twice then because actually
No, it only gets called when your state is updated. So when am I updating my state? When my promise is complete. So it only gets called once. Yeah. It's async this then function. Remember, it's a promise, and I'm saying when you have the result, then only call the set state. So it only calls once. It is async, yeah. But I'm calling it when the promise is complete. That's why it only gets called once. Does that make sense, Michael?
yeah, but I thought that anything you have after the async functional
Yeah, but what do I have after async function? I don't have anything after it. Huh? No, this is the definition of the function. I'm not calling this function. This is the definition. We are defining the function. We are not calling the function. React is calling the function. Yeah, these are all definitions. You understand definition versus calling? So this is we are defining the function. Right? This is how you define the function, right? I'm not calling the function. I'm actually not, you're not actually calling this function anywhere. React is calling this function. React is going to look into your code and call this function at an appropriate time. What time? At these times. They have their own internal state. When your component is mounting, it is going to call your constructor, render, and component did mount. When it is updating, it's going to call your render and component did mount, did update. If it is unmounting, it's going to call this method. Okay? What React is asking you, you have to define these methods. This is the definition. We are not calling these methods. So this is just definition of functions. Technical term, this is called we are overriding these functions. Yes. Up. There's nothing up. Because of your class. This is your class syntax. You cannot have let and const in your class. When you have a class, you cannot have those things. This is be deferred as this. Yes, these are any variable that you declare in a class are called class variables, and you don't have to use a const or add or let or anything. And you will access these using this keyword. This or this URL, this or API. It's confusing. I would. Yes. Yeah. And if you put const, you will see it will give you an error. It's not working. Yeah. That's the reason because it's inside the class. You cannot put a const or let inside the class. I would actually extract this out, but I think this is less confusing. But this one into an include in hooks. Oh, in hooks, instead of this, you would have a function. This whole thing will be a function component. So this you cannot use class for your hooks. No. You're going to still have this,
You have this.
but you will, instead of a class component, you are going to declare it as a function component. That's the first step. So convert this into a function component. So you will have function search user container, and that's it. Okay.
And I also have those right?
Yeah. Those will still sit. Yeah, I'm talking about the state. The next step would be
Use the
And use effect to kind of
use what?
use effect for making
Yes, that's the for API call. Yeah, the first step is for the state. So you're going to have a function component, and then you're going to declare. This time it will be results. Okay, and then you're going to create a function called set results. You can call it anything you want. Then you will say use state, and then pass an empty array. Why do we want? Right. So set result is going to replace your set state. Remember how do we update a state? We use set state method. So in a function component, you don't have access to state. You don't have access to set state function. So that's why these hooks are replacing those things. So when you declare it this way, this is your basically set state method, but you can call it anything you want. So you're going to say results, set results, use state. This is required is equal, and then you will pass an empty array. And then in your result component, you are passing this dot state dot results. Instead of that, you would say set.
I think you would just pass this.
Yeah, you will just pass in
You're
the
not changing it right there.
yeah. So you will just pass results. Literally, you will just say results is equal to results. Give it a try. Let's yeah. Look in the documentation. Convert this into a function. It's not. It's actually pretty easy. It's not as difficult. Use effect is more complicated, but you should be able to at least do this.
Can you tell me how mine is wrong?
It's not working.
Oh, I don't know yet.
You don't know yet.
Hooks. This is just there for you. This is where I'm sort of not quite sure. So if you use
So
hooks,
you're missing use effect import.
Oh, I see. Well, so I guess this is where I'm question. So here, even if you're using hooks, you still have state object.
Yes. But you're accessing it with this function.
So that this is
Yeah, no, it
this
doesn't
is
have to be an
replacing
object.
since this is coming back as an array.
Yeah, but it's
this
not going to
replaces
be.
this entire.
Right, it's not going to be an object. Right. So your set result is only pointing to an array called result. So it already knows it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, you don't have to do that
So-
object. Thing.
So if you have like class
You
functions.
still have an object. So remove the result.
Oh,
No, remove the result.
oh, you just have to.
Yeah, just pass it as a variable.
because it only
Yeah,
goes
it only
to
goes
one,
Yes.
whatever it's tied to up here.
Yes. Yes, Rina, did you have a question? You are only allowed to ask hook questions. This is you should be familiar with this. All right. Any questions? Is everybody able to run this before we move on to the next part? No. No. Yes. Good. Raymond, no. Okay. What's going on? Anybody else? Huh? Jeremy, you good? I like your extended screen. I should do that. Yes. App.js. Chris, did it work?
I need to actually put my comments
Yes. result list. Okay, so any questions before we move on? All right. So we have completed our search container, which is this whole thing, and then we have completed our results. All right. What remains is our form, and that's what we're going to do next. Okay. So for this, you're going to create a function component called search form. Okay, that's the first step. So you're going to create a function component which will be called search form. Okay. This search form is going to contain a input box and a button. Okay. So once you have this created, you are going to create some JSX using the HTML form tag, and your form is going to have input, an input box, and a button. Okay. You can add a label if you want, so that it kind of says search over here, but it's up to you. Okay, that's the minimum requirement. So you're going to have a input box and a button inside the form. Okay. Make sure in your input box you have your ID, placeholder, type, name, all those attributes set. Okay, that's the next step. Let's start with that, and then we'll see how to update it. So you're going to create a function component called search form. It is going to have a form inside it, which is going to have a label, optional if you want, input box, and a button. Okay. So this is for now just JSX or um, HTML, whatever. All right, do we have the search form? Once you have the search form, you are going to call that search form in your search container before the result list. So your search form component is going to be called from search result container just before result list. So before your result list, your form should show up. So once this is complete, you should be able to see a form on top of your results. So you should see a form on the top before this result list renders. Okay? Right, did everybody give this a try? Okay? Alright. Yes, please give it a try and don't wait for me to complete again. Kind of defeats the purpose of this revision. So we'll create a search form. Search form function component. So search form.js. And then, okay. This is going to be a function component. So import React from React const search form is search form export default search form. Okay. Returns for now. Okay. I'll come back and fix this. Okay, so this is my search form. It should have a form with input and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and remove this and say form. Okay, it is going to have a, you can say a label, search, input, okay, and then it's going to have a button. Let's call it submit. Search. Okay. Let me quickly fill out these properties. Let's call it, give it a name. Would be search. Type would be text. Okay. Let's use placeholder. You can say search for a GIF. So I have my name, type. Let's give it an ID, same as this one. Okay, just our HTML ones. Alright, so here's my form. And let's go to our last step, and we will call this form from our search container. And then we need to do it after this one, so we would just say search form didn't import it. Okay, so import search form from search form. Okay, so now we have our second component. So if we go back over here, doesn't show up at the bottom. Oh, it's at the bottom. Okay, let's fix that. Should be before. Let's put it before. 4, 7, and there it is. Okay, so now it should show up on the top. There's my search form, label, search, and search. Okay, doesn't look pretty, but it should work. Right, any questions? Was everybody able to complete this? It's a simple function component. Yes, search form. Yeah, label, input, and a button. Okay. All right, next step in your search result container, you are going to add another state, and that would be a string called search. Okay, what we are going for is when somebody types anything on your form, this input box, whatever they're trying to search, we are going to capture that, and then we are going to show it over here. Okay, so we are trying to capture whatever is being typed in. So in your search result, go ahead and add another state. This would be a string, and it's going to be called search. Initialize it with empty string for now. Okay. The next step would be to add a event handler. Okay. This event handler would be for anything that is typed over here. We need to capture that. Okay. Anything that is typed in, we need to have that captured using the event handler. Okay. Just like your on click, you are going to create a event handler function over here, which is going to have a single argument. Remember, just like your onClick function that we described, every function by default gets an argument called event or e or whatever you want. So you are going to create a function over here, which is going to handle the input the user is typing. So you can call it handle input change. So you are going to declare a event handler, okay, and you can call it handle input change. This is going to get a single argument, event, doesn't matter what you call it. Okay? Just stub that out. So you're going to create a function called handle input change, one single argument, and that should be it for now. And we'll put things inside it. Okay, so create a function, one argument, use arrow syntax, and empty for now. Okay, so this would be in my, the first step was to add a state, so I'm going to call it search. That's the state has been added. The next step is to add a function for event handler, so we're going to say handle input change. Okay, what is the purpose of this? This is to capture whatever is being typed in your search box. We haven't connected both of them, we are just defining the function that we're going to use. Okay, just like your click, you're going to get a single argument. This time we do need this one, so we're going to use this. Okay, previous activity we called it on click because it was on the button. This is on the input box, so we call it handle input change. Okay, now where is this function going to be called from? It is going to be called from your search form, right? And where in your search form? Input, right? Input, and then input has an event called on change. That's where your function needs to be called, right? So over here, we can go ahead and use our, instead of on click, just your button. This one is called on change, and Visual Studio should help you with this one. There it is, on change. Same as your on click, you need to pass a function that has a single argument of event. Okay, do we have that method? Yes, we just defined it. Okay, how do we access that method which we have defined in our handle input change? Remember your friend, we just did this activity, right? How do we call this method that we have defined in a different file, in a different and in the parent component, how do we access this one? Props. Okay. Anybody other than the 8 people that check the lifting sign? Okay. Do you understand? We just did this activity, the friend activity. How do we access those functions? We can pass them as props, right? Properties. We are not passing them, so we need to fix that. So we need to add our props to our search form. A function component that expects props. Okay. And how do I access this function which is in my search result container? I need to pass this as a prop. So I'm going to come over here in my search form. Okay, I need to pass that method. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call this prop as handle input change. And what am I passing? I'm passing a function, which is handle input change, which I just um, defined on the top over here. Okay, now my search form is going to get this function, and that's how I'm able to access it. So in my on change, I'm going to call props dot what we call handle input change. So this function is going to be called from here. Okay, no parentheses, no nothing. It's not possible. If you want to, you will have to wrap around just like we did in the previous activity. For this is good. Okay. Again, we are not combining things from the previous activity. Still nothing new. We haven't actually talked about even about forms being uncontrolled or control component. We are just defining methods and we are calling them from our parent component. Okay, that's the first method. The second one is the click one. Okay, we did this in our friend activity. So my button will have to have a click event handler. Okay, so in 5 minutes, see how you would wire that up. Okay, similar to your handle input change, that function is going to be in your search result container. You're going to pass it as a prop, and then in your search form, in your button, you're going to call that event handler. If you want, you can go back to your friend activity that we just did. We did the same thing. Should be exactly the same. So you'll have a on-click event. You're going to call that function from your properties, but you'll have to pass that from your search result container. Okay, so what we did, we created a function empty. It doesn't do anything. We'll have to come back and fill it. I get that. Okay, we'll have to create for our button click as well for now. We call it on submit, on click, whatever you want to call it. We're going to pass this function as a property down to your search form, and your search form is going to call the method whenever the button gets clicked. Confusing? No? Got it, Luis? Maybe? Sure. That's good. That's what I'm hearing. There's no sarcasm in your voice. You just said sure, you got it. That's good. Okay, just like a friend activity. Remember we created a on click event. We had a function, same thing over here. Okay? The first thing is you're going to create a function, which is going to be called when your button is clicked. So let's say handle submit button click, whatever you want to call it, or you can call it handle form submit since it's a form, so you can call it handle form submit. Okay, just like any event function, it is going to expect a single argument and a function. Okay, now when is this going to be called? When your button is clicked. The top one on line number 15 gets called when there's a text change. This one gets called when your handle form submit happens. So in your search form, you should have a on click. So it's going to be on click. Let's find this one. Okay, and we will have to call that method that is inside our search container. Similar to handle input change, how do we access that? We use properties. Okay, are we passing that function in our props? We are not. Okay, so first of all, we need to pass that function. So we will say handle form submit. Okay, and then I'm going to call my function that I just created on the top. Okay, now my search form is getting two properties. Both of them are functions. Okay, handle input change and handle form submit. In my search form, I should be able to access this function using the keyword props and then the function name that we are passing, which is called handle form submit. And you copy this and this. Yes. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Shouldn't go over here. And maybe we should put it over here. Okay? Thank you, Brooke. Yes, this has to go in your button code. Yes. Okay, on your screen everything should still render. None of them work because both of them are empty. Okay, so on our input change we are calling handle input change. On our click we are calling the click functionality. Okay, these functions exist in our search as a container. How do we access them? We access them using properties. Okay, all right, any questions? Any questions before we move on? Everybody understand? Okay. Goose, you seem confused. No? You got it? Okay, awesome. All right. So let's take a break. We'll come back at 12:45 and we will complete this activity. All right. Right now, what is remaining? We have these two functions which are empty. So we will have to fill this out. Okay. Take a break. 12:45. We'll start this way.
I would just come back and just like stand like this is the best seat in the house.
That's what I would do. Just like sit down.
Especially when like you just like but people go and I just look at this and like I've got no experience. I'm just gonna stand. People are all like looking to the sidelines. Which goes me too.
All right. So we will continue our current activity. All right. So we have two functions that are missing implementation. So we'll start with the easy one, the handle form submit. Okay. When is this going to be called? This is going to be called when you click the button on your search form. Okay. So what's the first thing we need to do when we click our button? We need to prevent the form from submitting on its own. Okay. So the first line would be prevent default. So let's go ahead and put that line in. So we already have our event variable coming in. We would do prevent default. Okay. And again, we don't want the form doing anything on its own. We want the control to be present over here. So that's why we do event.prevent default. Okay. What's the next step? When somebody types in something, we click the button. We should make that search, right? When somebody types something in, click the search button. It should go ahead and search that term. Okay. So we are going to make our Axios call again, with that search term. Okay, whatever the user is searching. Now, what is the variable that I have to use for my search term? In my component did mount, I was kind of hard coding this, right? I cannot hard code this anyway. So what would I have to do? So first of all, let's go ahead and copy this, our Axios call. I'm not going to rewrite it. You can extract this out, refactor it into a external file, and then it's going to have event.target. So since you don't have a state, okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to create all of these components on our own. All right. So if you look at activity number 4, do not copy the code, and we'll copy some code, but we'll follow the same structure. Okay. So you will see in the example we have two main components. One is called um, the first is your this is going to be our function component. We haven't defined anything yet. Okay. And then, as I said, you will have four more function components: about, contact, home, and blog. You can create a folder within it or create it on the same structure. It doesn't matter. All of them are components. React does not differentiate anything. Okay. But since it's in the example inside pages, we'll create our about.js. Okay. And then similarly, we'll create contact, home, and blog. Okay. Please understand the pages folder is for us. React does not differentiate. All of them are going to be a function component. It does not matter whether you put it inside your pages folder or outside pages folder. All of them are equal. Okay. The hierarchy is defined when you create that component tree, right? When you call from app, you're going to call portfolio. Portfolio is going to call navtab. That's when the React makes it hierarchy. Within these folders and everything, it doesn't matter. Okay. React is not looking at your folder structure. This is more for us so that we can understand what's going on. Okay, so I have about, contact as a h1 tag. Okay, and then it is a p tag with some details. So we'll say this is about page. Okay, and then some text. So you can we struck them, those two are empty, the portfolio and navtabs, but we completed about, contact, home, and blog. Those are simple function components with just each one and a text. Okay, nothing too complicated in any of these components. Okay, the next part, let's see, should we do navtabs? Okay, let's do the navtab one. So navtab is a function component, and after when navtab loads, we should see like tabs on the top. That's what we are building. So on our screen, we should see tabs. So we should have about, contact, blog, and home. So home, about, contact. So these are the tabs that you're building. Okay. So you are going to create a function component called navtabs. Right. This function component is going to have LIs. Okay, that's what it is. So it's going to have an unordered list, and each one of them would be stored in an LI. So unordered list, LI this, LI this, LI this, LI this. Okay, for now we'll just hard code it, but it's just going to be a function component with a bunch of LIs. Okay, you don't have to loop through or you don't have to do anything crazy for now. So create a function component, navtabs. Okay, import React from React. Okay. Function component, this is going to be called navtabs. So const nav tabs is equal to empty for now. We'll see if we need properties. Export default nav tabs. Okay, and then a return statement, which is going to go add some JSX to it. Okay, is everybody following? Any questions? Okay, again, it kind of defeats the purpose if I have to type the whole thing. I've already typed this thing out. We won't be coming back to this example after today. Again, as I said, on Tuesday, I will have to move on to React Router because that's a little bit more important. This is to show you what are the drawbacks, and then we can move on to the next one. Okay? So, in this case, UL and, oops, not UK, UL, and then within the UL, we are going to have LIs, which are going to form our tabs. Okay, so you have an LI. So how many tabs do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need 4 LIs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And all of these LIs are going to be links. We will use our anchor tag so that when somebody clicks, it goes to our home page, goes to our about, goes to our contact, and blog. So you will see within your LIs. In the previous activity, we had images. This time you have anchor tags. Just add some anchor tags with some href. So we'll just add anchor tags. We'll add the same in all of our LIs. Okay, so in the previous activity, we'll be using image. This time we are using anchor tag. Same thing. Okay, within our anchor tags, let's add our hrefs. Okay. Say href to something, and then this is going to be my home page. So let's put home. Okay, so my a tag. This is going to be for home. This is going to be for, let's see, about. So let's put about, and then what is next? Is blog or contact? What do you want? Blog. Okay, so we will put blog here and then contact. Okay, so these are my anchor tags. In href, when somebody clicks, where do I want to go? I want to go to my home page, so we will use our hash home. Okay, right now it doesn't work, but basically they're saying on your browser window, change it to hash home. Go to this link. We will connect it, but for now we'll just put this placeholder. Okay, so same thing for our this guy. So we'll say href is equal to hash about. Okay, this is better. Okay, and then for our log, we'll go to our href is equal to hash log. Okay, so li anchor tag href log. Okay, and let's copy this one. This time we are going to our contact page. Okay, no CSS, nothing. We can add some CSS using our Bootstrap. It kind of shows up nicely there. Okay, so let's see. I have a UL, bunch of LIs, then anchor tags. Why does this one kind of looks weird? let's move it to. Okay. So far, so good. Understanding simple HTML. We haven't done even state or pops or anything. We're just building the page. Okay. Let's look at our portfolio container now. Okay, we'll add some CSS over here. We'll import Bootstrap and do it. Okay, so portfolio container, this is going to be our class component. So go ahead and create a portfolio. You already should have the file. Add a class to it, and then we'll see what this state contains. Okay, so we'll close this out. We'll go to our portfolio container. We're going to create our class component. Okay, so the two imports are required are component and React. So import React and component. Okay. Yeah. This one. This one. Okay. Will that do? Let's check it out. Okay. That's pretty ish. All right. Let's go back over here. Let's see which one are we missing. Do we need some in our? Which one am I missing? Okay. For my A tags, and what class can I use?
No, that's me.
So we will use, thank you, we'll use nav dash link. Okay. Let's put it on the back. Let's put this after href. Nav link, and here it is. Okay. Let's see. Looks much nicer. All right. Again, not a lot of functionality. It was just styling our class. And we're using Bootstrap. Don't have to worry about any CSS. Okay. All right. So now coming to the functionality, what should happen when somebody clicks? When you click on the home page, these are all A tags. When you click on it, it should go to your home component. It should show up some text which is on your home. Right now, it doesn't do anything. Okay. So what functionality is that when you click on it, it should go to your component page. Okay. So I am saying on click. This means on your A tags, you're going to add on click event. And when somebody clicks on it, this is the function that needs to be called. Okay, so you will go ahead and create a function. Let's say handle page change. Okay. Let's keep it empty for now. And this thing. Okay. Now I want to call this function from my nav tabs. This means I need to pass this as a property, right? Because this is a function that has to be passed into nav tabs. Okay. How do you pass functions and properties? You would put them in your props over here. So you would create a props called handle page change and pass that function inside it. So let's do that. Let's create handle page change property, and this is going to send handle page change. This is going to be a little bit different. When somebody clicks on it, I need to specify which page was clicked. How do I tell? Just like your friend's example, remember? When you were trying to remove a friend, you needed an ID, right? An identifier that you can pass back so that you exactly know which friend to delete. It's the same concept over here. The only difference is when you make a click, you need to find out exactly which link was clicked. Okay, so what you can do is you can pass a string from over here, telling your handle page change that this was the page that was clicked. For example, you can say handle page change, and in your argument you can pass a string called home. Okay, this way on my portfolio container, I am going to find out exactly which one was clicked. Okay. For example, if I call this function for home, this is the wrong one, and this is going to be about. Okay, some string to identify exactly which link was clicked. Okay, again, you are passing data between two components. All right, you're telling the other component what is happening. So I'm going to receive a string page. Okay, and then I am going to update my state. Okay, so what do we need for state? We need which page or which component was clicked, a string. Okay, we need to update this string over here. So in my handle page change, we are going to update the state. Okay. Again, just like your friend component, remember, go back and look at that one. We were using set state and updating to whatever was being passed over here. So we'll do the same thing. We will update our current page, but we will use our set state method, and then we will set state takes an object. Okay, and our state is currently called current page, and we will update this to whatever was to us. Okay. Now, handle page change is getting an input, which is a string. But remember, on your events, you cannot pass anything else just like your ID in our friend example. You can only pass an event, right? So if you go back over here, this syntax is not valid. All right. Again, this is the same example that we did in our friends. What do we have to do? We'll have to wrap it around into an anonymous function, and within that body, then call this function. Okay, so we'll have to do the same thing over here. So instead of doing this, I'm going to cut this anonymous function. Okay, and then I'm going to call this over here. Okay, same thing that we did in our friends example. So we cannot pass an event. We want to call this function with a different kind of a parameter. It's not going to be an event. It's not going to be an ID. We want a string. So this is, you will have to wrap it around and call this function the same fashion. Okay, same thing we did in our friend example. So in this case, we are going to update this to all of them. So this will change. This will become, we'll change it to about. We'll change it to blog, and we will change this to contact. So home is good. This would be about. This is going to become blog, and this is going to become contact. Okay, so now anytime you click on this anchor tag, it is going to call the onClick function, and it is going to call this function, which is in our portfolio container, and it is going to pass in a string telling you which page was clicked. Okay, so once this comes over here, it is going to go ahead and update our state. It is going to update the page, and it should come up with that page. Okay. Do I need to pass in my? No, that should be okay. Okay. If you render this, you will see nothing happens. And this was actually the unsolved version. We have just solved the unsolved one. Okay. The point of this activity was, how do you render those pages? Okay. This is where the conditional rendering comes in. Okay. So looking at our diagram, I said within your nav tabs, below should be all your pages. Okay. You're going to render those pages. You're going to render your, oops, no. You need to render your about component, Let's go ahead and import about from, what am I doing now? Import about from pages / about. Okay, so you need to render your about page, so about page shows up. Okay, you also need to render your what is the second one? Contact. What is it? Blog. You need to also render your blog page. Okay, so let's go ahead and import blog as well. It's going to be blog. Okay, and about. Okay, so your blog page renders, and similarly you need to render your contact and about blog and contact. Just one more. Okay, this is going to be contact and contact. Okay, you have to do something like this. So within your same as your nav tabs, well, it should be below. These both are segments. Below your nav tabs, your pages should render. Of course, this doesn't look right. It's wrong. They should be rendering based on what was clicked. Okay, but eventually this is how it should, like these should not, when I click about page should show up. When I click blog, this page should show up, and contact, and so on and so forth. Okay, but eventually one of these should be rendering. Okay, and what is the condition? The condition is when I click about text, when I click blog, when I click contact. So this is where the conditional rendering comes in. Okay, you don't want to render all the components. You need to render these components based on a condition. And how do we check the condition? We use our if statements. Okay, these are if statements are same in React as well. So what we want to do is we want to render our pages based on what was clicked. And how do we know what was clicked? We know by this function over here, handle page change. Our state is going to tell us which page was clicked. Okay, so what do we have to do? Let's keep this. We will okay. Instead, what we will do is we'll create a function called render page. No arguments, no function. Okay, and then we are going to call this function after navtab. So we will put our curly braces, render page. Okay. Oh, I shouldn't have removed those. So for example, let me just quickly put them again. Just to make sure this is working for now. Okay, it comes up. So in our render page, we are going to write those conditions, and based on our state, which is current page, we are going to render the component that we want. Okay, so simple if statement. So if, or you can use switch as well. Okay, let's use switch. Okay, what am I checking on? I'm checking on my state current page. Okay, so I'm going to say if or search this dot state dot current page. If my current page is blog page. Okay, the last one is contact, so I don't need a if statement. I can just say if else return contact. Okay, just return the contact page. Okay, so this is what it is called conditional rendering. Based on some statement, you're rendering different components. Okay, all of these components are never going to show up at the same time now. You see it? Only if the state is home, then only the home page renders. If it is about, then about renders. If it is blog, then blog renders. Otherwise, contact renders. And where are we getting this string from? These are coming from our nav tabs. If you switch to nav tabs, you will see we are sending these strings, these names from our anchor tag over here. Okay. Define the render page. I'm calling render page after nav tabs. So any component, this component will come over here and render itself. So let's go back over here. Just refresh. Home page. If I click about, now about page shows up. If I click blog, blog shows up. Contact, contact shows up. Home, about, blog. Okay. Any questions? Yes. Nav tabs. Okay. Okay. Last part, I'll add some CSS, but before you will see what is the drawback of this routing. If you copy this, remember what I said, this I'm on my, if you look at the link, it is localhost /hash about, okay? And it renders the about page, which is good. But if you copy this and open in a new tab, you will see what happens. It renders my home page. Again, what is the reason? Okay, so before you leave, one last thing. It's kind of optional, but it is mentioned over here. So if you see these links are not changing, just to make sure that which one is active, you can add a condition in your class name as well. For that, what you do, output my regular one. Okay, this is again conditional, which you can use in your class names also. Okay, for example, I'll update all of this. So this is going to be about page. Basically,